Today we're going to be going over Ermac's moveset. We're going to go over all of his strings and specials, just going over all the relevant points, like, whether something's plus on block, what you'll use as a punish, just, generally going over the entire moveset and explaining what each thing is for, just in case anyone doesn't have access to the character. So, we'll start off with boring stuff, we'll start off with buttons and then get into specials. So, starting off with standing 1, we have the string, which is 1, 2, 3 grab. On its own, it does a lot of damage, so there is a chance that in certain combos, like this, you may just use it as a way of ending a combo since it does so much damage, and it is pretty good. As for frame data, standing 1 is +2, 1, 2 is 0, so this is a pretty good stagger if you just do this and mash into down 1, or just a bunch of standing 1s into throws. That's very good, easy offense there. And the full 1, 2, 3 is -7, so it can be punished, but just a little tricky. But the 1 and 1, 2 on their own are really good, and they will be your fastest punish. His standing 2 and other stuff is not fast enough to punish a lot of things in this game, so if you are trying to get a punish on something, 1, 2, and special cancel into whatever kind of combo you want to get. Standing 2 is this long-ranged high attack. Now it is 17 frames, it's a little slow, but it is very long-reaching and goes into 2, 1, 2 as this full string that puts Ermac into the air. And all of these buttons are cancelable. So you can cancel first hit, second hit, or third hit, like I can cancel into float there. So it's a very useful string, and even just on its own, without cancelling any of the hits, it easily goes into combos on its own. So I can do stuff like this, and get a super easy meterless combo that almost didn't use any special moves at all. The frame data on it is not amazing. It's not meant to be a pressure tool, it's meant to be kind of a whiff punish or neutral kind of tool, like if you backdash and then catch someone trying to do something over here. So just do be careful that the third hit is not going to come out even if you dial in the whole string. So if the opponent does block, you want to make sure you go into something like maybe cancel your backdash off of this thing that we'll go over soon, or go into some kind of cameo attack that keeps you a little bit safer. But overall, it's going to be one of your main combo strings, because as I mentioned, it can go into combos like this very easily, but in fact all of its components can go easily into a combo, like the standing 2 can go into the fully charged fist, and even 2-1 is on its own a launcher. So there's lots of different ways this can lead into combos, and you'll see a lot of different variations when you find combo compilations. Now 2-1 also has a different follow-up where instead of 2-1-2 you press 2-1 grab, and this could be used in different circumstances. A lot of combos you might find that 2-1-2 doesn't end up being a useful string and you want to get a chunk of damage, so there are cases where you might use 2-1 grab as it could be an optimal way of getting combos, we'll see. Back 2 is going to be Ermac's main mid. It's 14 frames, so a tiny bit slower than some other mids, but it has decent range and has this string that is back 2, 4, 2. It does a decent amount of damage, launches the opponent into the air in full screen, where you can maybe start doing some zoning or putting up a shield, and it can also easily link into combos. On block, all the hits are -6, so completely safe, except for the final hit, which is -3, which means that this is a decent stagger tool, or you can just cancel it, do some pressure that way. 4-2-2 is Ermac's overhead. Now it's a 23 frame overhead, which is reasonably fast compared to some other overheads like Rain's, which is 28. It has decent range, nothing crazy, but it's pretty similar to his mid. And it is just an overhead that he can cancel, so you can go into any kind of lift combos, or any kind of dash combos like that. This being cancelable means that you can keep it safe with these kind of soul punch cancels, and having its own string that is also completely safe from both hits is pretty cool to have on an overhead that is pretty easy to use. Standing 3 is this interesting pick that is a little bit slow and is a high and leads into this 3-4 string, which is a high and then a low. It doesn't seem to have too much use except for, a little bit of mix up with the low there, which you can of course switch up with the Scorpion cameo to make some mix into the overhead. But apart from that, it doesn't seem to have too many uses except for being able to combo into the teleport for a high damaging button that goes into that. Back 3 is this weird disjointed ghost mid where it pushes the opponent really far back, is very safe, but it is a little bit slow, so I think it's more of a, if the opponent is rushing towards you and you're trying to back off and they try and do something, you can do this to try and push him away, because on hit it pushes them very far away, on block it pushes them very far away and is safe. I think you're meant to do it while you're holding back and then just launch him away if you're getting a little scared of being close. Standing 4 is a great kick that you'll see a lot in combos, either just as standing 4 cancelling into other specials, like that, or using the standing 4 string. So we've got 4-2-4 here, and it's another damaging string, but the second hit here can be cancelled into our float, which is where you can get a lot of interesting extensions. And this big blast that does a lot of damage can't be cancelled into anything, but it is a pretty obvious case that you can use a cameo like Janet Cage or Mini Sonya or Melina version of Chameleon to extend. Back 4 is of course his sweep, and he's got kind of an interesting one. It's got pretty decent range. He kind of launches himself forward to get really close to the opponent, so then you're close to go for any kind of overhead or whatnot. And it is also 0 on block, which means, you know, you're not plus, but you certainly have a chance of mashing the opponent out and seeing who wins. So pretty good low, and it matches well with this great overhead that's completely safe that he has. Forward 4 here is another interesting string. It goes forward 4-3. It's a double knee that is a double high, unfortunately, but the first hit does leave him in the air to go for his float cancels. Now this is going to be a main way that he gets his unique combos. This is where the more adept Ermac players will start to show their executional prowess, because there are a lot of interesting combos and multiple refloat combos you can get using this kind of thing. Just as a little small example there, very not optimal, but this is going to be a key part of his combos. Maybe not something you're using all the time in neutral, because it is just a high, even though it is a knee, you may expect it to be a mid. It doesn't really reach super far either, so if you are in this kind of further range, you're more likely to be using stand 2. But once you are in a combo, then there's a chance that you'll be using it with your floats to get more extended combos. And you can still do it on block as well, and of course, that means that you're going to get some pretty cool extended pressure with overheads, or you can cancel into your low. There's a lot of interesting mix you can get from this. Now for crouching buttons, Ermac is fortunately not as disabled as Quan Chi was. So we've got a 7 frame down 1. It doesn't have the greatest range, but hey, it's 7 frames, we'll take it. At least we can punish other down 1s. Down 3 is, you know, decent range, but nothing ridiculous. It is a 9 framer, which is reasonably fast, and is quite safe at -8, which is safer than a lot of other down 3s. Down 4 has the most range, is 11 frames, but is also the most unsafe, so if you do it too close, the opponent will definitely be able to punish you. But it is a good poke to reach from around this distance, if you don't feel like using a sweep, which is also a really good button. And down 2 seems pretty good. It seems to have very good vertical range and is 9 frames, which is pretty quick as a down 2 can be. It doesn't have much horizontal distance, like he's not swinging a staff around, but it seems like a pretty serviceable and high up reaching down 2, which is what you want. Okay, now let's have a look at some of our aerial strings. Starting off, we have 1-2-2, which is a really cool looking string with that big beam of ghost spirit energy. And it is a way that you can easily extend combos. So he teleports down to the ground, so you can easily dash in and go for some grounded combos, and it's a good way of extending. Then instead you can also do 1-2-3, which honestly acts in a pretty similar way, because they both lead to a bounce, and honestly 1-2-3 seems a little bit better to me because it leaves you closer to the opponent, so you don't have to rely on dashing in to get close enough, depending on what you're trying to do with this. But perhaps the juggling or scaling will be slightly different for these two strings, even though they act in similar ways. And 1-2-1 doesn't lead to a combo at all. We also have 1-4, which is kind of just a shortened version of 1, 2, 3, where we have the flip at the end. We just do the flip instantly and it leaves you really close to the opponent. So if you really want to do something that leaves you super close, like maybe you want to make sure you're super close to go for stuff like this, then that's the string you want to use. It's also less hits, so it probably has less gravity scaling, meaning it uses up less gravity in your combo. And yeah, it just leaves you really close, so if you're trying to go into some short reaching buttons, then that's one you're going to want to use. Our jump 2 strings are generally more damaging, but don't lead to combos in the same way the jump 1 strings do. So we've got 2, 4, 2, which switches sides, and then 2, 4, 3, which does about the same, but doesn't switch sides. When it comes to jump-ins though, jump 1 is kind of a more long-reaching jump-in, so if you're trying to reach from a long distance, like over here, jump 1's can be your better bet because it reaches really far, whereas jump 2 is your better jump-in because it reaches more downwards, so you can press it from higher up, better chance of beating the opponent, try to anti-air you, and it's just easier to use. And his jumping kick is actually quite good. It has a decent angle, not Johnny Cage style, but pretty good, and he does actually have a pretty easy time comboing off of it. He can either combo into his mid, or use a dash into his flying knee to get some cool float extensions. Now let's get into our special moves. So first up we have this Spirit Punch, which is back forward 1. This kind of acts in a similar way to Rain's projectile. Of course, it's not a projectile, it's a big mid punch. But what's cool about it is that you can cancel it by dashing either forwards or backwards. And if you hold it down completely, then it puts the opponent in this big crumple state where you can get a nice combo from. The amplified version kind of just acts like a faster version of the regular one. You can still cancel it backwards and forwards and it just happens a little bit faster. And the fully charged version comes out faster as well, so that can actually combo off of buttons like stand 2 or stand 3, or I think even 1, 2. No, that's not true. But it's a crumple that you can get in the middle of combos, and depending on, what cameo you use, that could be a cool way of extending your combos. But generally for pressure, it's also pretty cool, because now when you're doing things that leave you a little far away, like you stand 2, you can dash away to keep yourself safe, or dash in to go for throw mix. And ultimately that's all it's really used for. You can also just let it go to hit the opponent with a mid, but just do be careful, because if they do block it, it is -15, so they can punish you. Next we have down back 1, which is the lift, or in this game it's called the Witch's Slam. Regularly, it's just a bit of a damaging ender. It starts up reasonably fast, so you can use it in basically all combos, and it is a mid. But the main version we want to talk about is the amplified version, where the opponent gets held there for a long time, so you have tons of time to either just jump in for a combo, or if you have a certain cameo or something where you have something you want to set up, you have plenty of time to do that here. You can even put on this shield if you would like to. But yeah, if you have a cameo like, I don't know, Frost Orbs or something that you want to set up that takes quite a long time, this is a perfect time to do it. Of course, it's also a great way of extending your combos, but personally I think it's more worthwhile to use your meter in other ways to extend your combos, like on the meter burn teleport, because that, at least in my experience, tends to lead to more damage. Next we have this nice grab move called Behind You, or Too Late when it's amplified. Now this is back forward 2, and it's mostly just a damaging way to end your combos. It's slightly more damaging than the lift, and looks a little cooler, and it does have the slight bit of airborne time, as he kind of blasts you with his hand there at the end, which means if you have like a Janet Cage cameo, you can use that to extend even further. The amplified version, or the EX version, is actually Ermac's armored attack, but unfortunately it is a high, which means the opponent can just duck under it. So if they're mashing on you with crouching pokes, your armor attack is not going to do anything against that, because it's just going to go straight over their head, which is really unfortunate. It's a problem that Shao Kahn and Natara both have. Next we have the float, or the game calls it suspended animation. So you can only do it when you're in the air, which, of course you can do it from when you jump, or any of your strings that put you into the air. So your forward 4 will put you into the air, forward 2 will put you into the air, and 2, 1, 2 will put you on the air, on the opposite side. So, you can also change which way you float by just, after you do the input, you just quickly tap forwards, and you'll kind of move forwards a little bit, which can be useful, say like after this string, if I want to be a little bit closer to the opponent, where maybe if I didn't do that, or if I accidentally went away, see the button didn't connect there, but if I hold forwards, I can easily connect. So that just makes your combos a little bit more consistent. You can also amplify it, which doesn't seem to do much on first glance, but it just makes it generally faster. So if you look at the speed that I get my button out here, it's a lot faster than if I went like that. So this can make your pressure on block strings a little bit more tight, and perhaps can give you better mix-up opportunities. Next up we have Death's Embrace, which is this weird shield effect looking move. You do a half circle back into 3, and while this is active, as the opponent hits you, you will not take damage as your life, but as your meter. So if I take control of the opponent here, and he starts attacking you, as you can see, I start losing chunks of my super meter instead of my life. Which is kind of cool, but if you decide, oh, I do actually want to keep on a bit of my meter, you can at any point, even while you're getting hit, just press down and the stance switch button, and that'll cancel it, so that you start losing life again. Next up we have Shrieking Souls, which is back forward 3, and this is one of his main, strongest combo tools in my opinion. It has a lot of applications. You can even use it in situations like this, where you just use it as a way to dash into the air, or primarily, you just dash forwards and go for anything you want afterwards. So perhaps something like this. It's a really easy way of extending your combos, but like I showed, there are more tricky optimal ways of like dash jump cancelling, but it is really useful, especially after this is kind of like our main combo route. If I do something into the Shrieking Souls and then dash in afterwards, it's just a really good way of extending and getting a bunch of extra damage in your combos. But basically, yeah, it launches the opponent in the air. The amplified version does a bit more damage, and you can cancel it into a dash, which just brings you really close to the opponent and lets you extend off of it pretty easily. Now, the only real full screen presence we have as Ermac is this aerial special called Hungry Hands, and it's down back 3 in the air, and it's a low projectile that is done in the air, which is pretty unique. So if you get good at doing like quick aerial special moves, you can kind of zone with this a little bit. Especially if you have a cameo that helps you zone, like Sub-Zero or Serena giving you extra projectiles, you could perhaps have a full screen presence. You've got time to set up the shield if you want, to perhaps go through some of the opponent's projectiles without getting hurt yourself. This could be a way of chipping out the opponent, and the enhanced version is pretty unique. It does cost you 2 bars, which is pretty rich, but it is a full screen, low projectile that completely stuns the opponent for a full combo. And the last move is the teleport, performed with down back 4. Now, this move is actually pretty interesting. The move list shows that there's a lot of variations of it, but basically, there's just the teleport and the enhanced teleport, but you can also hold up or down to make Ermac go in the air or on the ground. So by default, if I do it on the ground, he'll just do it on the ground, but if I hold up, he'll go up. And if I do it in the air, he'll be in the air, but if I hold down, he'll go down. So it's cool that you have the option of catching the opponent. If you think they're going to jump, you can maybe catch them out of the air. Or there are certain circumstances where if I try to do this in the air, after certain strings, it may not connect. It can be useful to have the option to go for the grounded version, because it can lead to better combos than the aerial version, because even if the opponent is in the air and you get connected, you can't press buttons until you hit the ground, so it's not really that useful. So if you do the enhanced version, you generally want to make sure you do the grounded version. And that's what is going to lead into most of our most damaging combos, because it is just a really good way of going into all of our damaging extensions. And his Fatal Blow is also quite interesting because, well, it's a Fatal Blow, so it's cool, has decent startup, but it can also be used full screen because it is a projectile. and it travels reasonably fast, so if you catch the opponent trying to do something slow from full screen, say for example, a rain player trying to throw a slow-ass projectile, well, you can easily react to that, armor through it, and punish them with this Fatal Blow projectile, which is pretty powerful, and it could steal you a lot of games. So that is Ermac's entire moveset. Just to summarize some of the key points, if you're going for a punish, you're going to be using your 1-2-3 string, because it's just a really good way of punishing and going into a combo like this. If the opponent's blocking and you're going for pressure, you're going to be doing a lot of standing 1-1-2 staggers, because you're plus or 0 on block here, so you can keep doing these staggers, and go into a poke or go into a throw, or use your float cancels, either from your standing 4-2 or your forward 4, which can be really cool. You go into overheads or lows from the air, and also just make sure anytime you have a decent amount of plus frames or advantage, remember that you have this good overhead that you can catch the opponent slacking and go for a full combo. You can also vary up your offense by using these cancels from your Soul Fist, which you can dash backwards or dash forwards for throws, so he's got really good close range offense, actually. When we're further away, make sure you use your standing 2, is probably your most long-reaching button. We also have a great down 4 and back 4 as lows to reach from around this distance. And if you do see that your standing 2 hits, you can easily go into a full combo. And as we get a little bit further away, you might start using our aerial projectile to zone out the opponent a little bit. Set up your shield, try and catch him off guard with a teleport, or even just use a YOLO Fatal Blow to armor through whatever they do. So that was just a quick overview of Ermac's moves. Hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.